Welcome to the Fort Lauderdale Real Estate Market Update for January 2025. This will be the Single Family Homes edition. My name is Casey Prindle, your Fort Lauderdale Realtor. If you've been thinking about buying a home in Fort Lauderdale, selling a home in Fort Lauderdale, buying a second home in Fort Lauderdale, you can, easiest way to find me is give me a phone call, 786-443-7203. You can also text me there if you want. My email address will be down here in the description. Email me if that's your preferred mode of communication. I'm going to try to jump in and answer some of the questions I get all the time today, such as, is the Fort Lauderdale real estate market ready to crash? Median single-family home prices in Fort Lauderdale are now $678,750. That is up from $520,000 a year ago. Data typically runs 30 days behind on this report, which is why if we're in January and you're seeing December data, that's how it goes. Stick around to the end of the video. I'm going to try to give you some of my thoughts that I couldn't quite squeeze in anywhere else within this video. All right, single-family homes, Fort Lauderdale. Median pricing, $678,750. How much stock do I put in this? Little to none. 130 sales last month. The sample size is small. If you wanted to look at the whole Broward MSA, sure. But then even from there, you have to drill down to product type. You can't compare. We lump everything together here, right? Single-family homes in Coral Ridge and Vic Park, Rio Vista on the beach, and that gets mixed together with stuff west of 95. Median pricing just doesn't really translate through well in Lauderdale. So, in general, I guess you can look at it and say median pricing is up and kind of use that as your guide. I also think that can help illustrate, despite all the doom and gloom headlines for Florida real estate, it's sensationalism. It's just kind of overstated at this point. But that's all I'd take from it. So let us move on to something more meaningful. Total number of properties sold. I've said this time and again, clearly one of the things that matters the most is how many buyers are raising their hand, stepping forward and saying, I want to buy that house. In all of Fort Lauderdale, 130 people stepped forward last month and said, I want to buy that single-family residence. Let's look back a little here. 141 sales, down to 130 sales year over year. Can you make an argument that this chart is kind of pushing to the downside? Yes, you could. Of course, slower number of sales is going to be very concerning for everybody. It's going to favor buyers. It's not going to be good for sellers, right? Logically speaking. If you are thinking of buying or selling a property in Fort Lauderdale, give me a call, 786-443-7203. You can text me. You can email me. I'll put my email in the link below. One way or another, get in touch with me. I like to talk about real estate. I think you know that by now. So if you want to make a more data-driven decision based on real estate fundamentals instead of the color of the drapes in a house, which is not the kind of realtor I am, give me a call. Let's talk. All right, let's move on. Average list to sales price. A couple of things to take from here. First of all, this is the price, the value of the original sales price versus the actual sales price that took place. So this is at 94.67. If we said if something had gone from 100,000 down to 98,000, and you weren't going by the original sales price, you were going by adjusted sales price, you would see that this would be higher. Thankfully, they use original sales price, so it gives a much more accurate depiction of the market, right? This also means if you want to run around firing offers off at 80% of listing price, you're probably not going to get too far, right? What it does show is there is a willingness on sellers' part, or more, should we say, a recognition that a lot of people price aspirationally, price aggressively, when right now you should be pricing to the downside. That's just the reality of the market. You know, if you're 5-10% below where your property should list, you will sell, and you will sell quickly. So it's got to be a whole calculation for you. But look, bottom line, sellers want this number to be way up here, you know, over 100% of asking price. That was just insane. But look, you didn't have to think too much. You just slap whatever value you wanted on it and you were going to get it. Versus down here, you have to be much more pragmatic and you have to think this thing through a whole lot more. This is a much more nuanced and skilled market than we were here, right? All right, median days on market. One thing I want to take away from this or point out to you is this does not include the time that you're in escrow. This is only the time from the property was active till it went pending sale. So you need to add another 30, 45 days onto this if you're a seller and you're trying to calculate, when am I going to get money in my bank account? You know, you're looking 70 to 90 days if you price well. So again, who is this number good for? Higher days on market, better for buyers. Why? Because sellers aren't seeing a lot of offers. They know if they see something in the beginning of the month and they go and look at the end of the month, the property's still there. Sellers kind of also take note, you know, there's a lot of stuff that's climbing way up high in days on market. And if you're up there and you haven't adjusted price aggressively, I think you really need to look at doing so. And again, buyers, it just means there's not a lot of pressure in the market. Not for buyers anyways. Now, little asterisk with this. What this doesn't tell you is property specific types. If you are looking well below the median sold price, if you're between 400,000 and 500,000, you are not 42 days on market, right? So there's different pockets that are selling faster and slower, and that can be locations sell faster and slower, price points sell faster and slower. So this is okay as a guide, but you really need to contact me so we can refine it and give you a clear picture of what pricing probably looks like in the location and the price bracket that you're looking at. Make sense? Good. All right. Median price per square foot. Just like with median sold pricing, I tell you don't take a whole lot from it. Same thing with median price per square foot. I don't want you to put a whole lot of stock in this. What it does show you, I think, is overall prices are moving up. This chart, I think, illustrates that well. I've said it time and again. The good stuff is also selling, so price per square foot is going to move up because there's not a lot of buyers looking around for your fixer-upper property. There are a lot of buyers, proportionally, looking for things that are just updated, maintained, renovated recently. That's what they want. So that's what I would take from there. Total dollar volume. Now again, how much am I going to put into this? Well, look. Lauderdale is a strange marketplace in that in the same MSA, in the same data set, you can have a $400,000 house and you can have a $25 million house sell in the same month. And we lump that all together into here. I don't separate by neighborhood. I don't separate by waterfront and non-waterfront. I don't separate by years of construction. I just lump it all together, or the data provider does. And so, just like I was just talking about, look, the data is much more nuanced than this. Where I think you do get concerned is when you've got, I would say we're kind of on the lower half of the chart. So I would say, the volume is still lower. But it is interesting. There are some, like Vic Park is a good example. It's kind of easier to sell a new construction house for $3.5 million, it's kind of easier to sell that right now than it is to sell the land value or fixer-upper for 1.2 and below. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's just that's the truth of the market right now. So I digress anyways. All right, before I move on, I'm going to say it once again. If you're thinking about buying or selling in Fort Lauderdale, give me a call, 786-443-7203, or text me. Whatever it is that you want to talk about in the real estate market. It's what I like to talk about. And I like meeting new people, but more than that, I'm fascinated by the amount of people that have found me on YouTube through videos like this, have called me, and a lot have become clients, but I've just had a lot of interesting conversations with a lot of interesting people. And so don't be shy. Reach out to me. All right. Months of inventory. If you have watched, or in some cases, people have been reading my stuff for over a decade now. Wild as that sounds. Anyways, months of supply is always the thing that I have spent a lot of time looking at. Give me one statistic in a market to tell me what I think it's going to do, and months of supply is going to be it, followed next by total number of sales, right? Supply is just going to tell me how briskly that market is moving and who we're favoring, which for me is important, because if I'm working with a buyer or a seller, I need to be able to tell you what the market looks like from a pressure standpoint, is the best way to phrase it. Limited supply is going to favor sellers. Buyers will have fewer choices. Your aspirational pricing may be met with a very limited amount of supply. Prices move up because there's nothing for sale, and a buyer says, I'm willing to step up and pay more than the guy next door just paid for this property. Prices move down because buyers say, I'm not willing to pay as much for this property as the guy next door just paid, because there's 70 other properties that look exactly like it that are on the market, and I'm going to go find a more negotiable seller. So when we look at supply, that's the lens I want you to look at it through. Now, it's said that 6 months of supply favors neither buyers nor sellers. Realistically speaking, when you look at this chart, I think Lauderdale is closer to 4 months as an average. So I do think right now we are favoring buyers. I'll be honest with you. I'm working with a number of buyers across a couple of price points, but, generally speaking, we can call it between $9 million and $3 million, or excuse me, $900,000 and $3 million. And I think that each of those brackets is a little bit different, and the supply numbers look a little bit different in those brackets. But I don't think there's an excess of supply across many price points. If sales were to remain constant, it would take 6.13 months to eat up all of the existing inventory. The way that price can move up is if supply constrains. If you look at this chart, it looks like it could be curling down. Now, how would that make a little sense to me? All right. A lot of people have 3 and 4% interest rates. They're not pressured to sell. A lot of people are throwing their property on the market and saying, hey, look, if I get my price, I'll take it. If I don't, let it expire. I'm not that stressed about it. And that's true. It's 100%. This is not a distressed marketplace. Very little distress in this market right now. I mean, I track the foreclosure numbers. It's minuscule. It's just not, it's not a pressured marketplace like that. But you have a whole lot of sellers that are just saying, hey, if my property sells, it sells. Now, do I think there's pockets that this is more applicable to? All right, listen. Rental. Let's talk about your rental market. I don't even want to talk about the Airbnb marketplace. If you called me over the last several years and told me you were buying for Airbnb and I underwrote it for you, you're still safe. if you went with one of these pie in the sky things, you paid too much and you're probably not a happy camper right now. I digress, but let's look at annual, all right? Let's just say you owned a house in Lauderdale, you moved out of it, you moved somewhere else. Over the past several years, you've seen rent growth. You've seen your top line go like this. Now, what happened is we capped out. Tenants aren't able to pay more than they're paying now. But what happened down here? You might still have your 3 or 4% interest rate, but your insurance went up. Your taxes went up. What happened in here? Margin shrank. A lot of second homeowners and single family homeowners who went out there and rented the property that they weren't living in, their margins are shrinking, and they're shrinking quickly, and I don't see an end in sight for that. As values increase, your assessed value is going to go up. I mean, man, the insurance marketplace is an absolute, to call it a dumpster fire right now is being polite. It's a total mess. And people are seeing several 100% increases on premiums. Not wildly uncommon. So anyways, look, this is kind of the takeaway that I want to take, and I kind of went into my whole crystal ball and what I was going to, do this whole thing for you guys of, do I see the market crashing? Because that's really the question I get asked. What everybody's asking it in different ways, but that's really what it boils down to is, do I see the market crashing? I don't. There's not enough pressure in it. If supply does start to increase, and I don't know why supply would magically increase. Look, there's less than 1% of the land in Broward County, never mind Lauderdale, is available to be built upon. So you have to buy old stock, knock it down, and rebuild it. But even then, you're not adding new supply. The supply was already there. You're just changing the type of supply that's put on top of the land. You're going from an older house to a newer house. But we can't just build, right? We can't just throw 300 new houses down. We don't have the ability to do that. So, look, I don't think there's a whole lot of reason that a ton of supply is going to come to market. That's why I don't think we're looking at some kind of crash scenario. If defaults start climbing like crazy, sure. But here's the thing with that. A lot of people have equity. People when the market crashed before, they were upside down. Now, unless you bought in the last couple of years, that's not even a risk. You may not like the price you can sell your home for, but you can sell it tomorrow. We don't have that in the market. It's just not happening. So when I see this stuff of prices need to correct 30%, why? Why? If sellers just pull back and keep their property off the market, and buyers have 7 choices of homes to look at in their price bracket, why does that one guy need to accept 30% less than what he's asking? It's illogical. Now, people are saying, well, what will light the market on fire? What will light the market on fire is lower interest rates, right? You're right. 100%. 100% it will. A lot of people are locked in now where they have a 3 or 4% mortgage rate. They go to sell that property. They want to buy another property. They buy a property at half the price but double the mortgage rate. They're really not saving any money, right? A lot of this stuff is just math-based. And I sit with a lot of people, and I can tell you the math just doesn't work for a lot of people right now. Do I think interest rates are magically going to come down? Look, we're within historical norms. Historical norms, 6 to 7% on interest rates. We're not in some far-out land. 3 to 4%, that was far-out land. That's not normal. That's normal for some people. It's not normal for the market. The only thing, in my opinion, that's going to pull rates back is if labor breaks. If labor breaks, I can see the Fed acting and pulling rates down at a somewhat aggressive level. Labor hasn't broken yet, right? So I don't know. I don't see a whole lot of reason it's going to happen. Now remember, even if the Fed does reduce interest rates, that's an overnight interest rate. It's independent of the 10-year. The 10-year trades completely differently, and mortgage rates are based off that. So there's my often broken crystal ball scenario. All right, look, let me wrap this up. Thanks for sticking with me, first of all. Thanks for watching. If you're thinking about buying or selling, call, text, or email me. 786-443-7203. I look forward to talking with a new group of you every month. It seems to happen. But hey, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next month.